Alright guys, quick follow-up video to some videos I made early on this year talking about the whole Nintendo censorship situation, which we do have a new development going on with that, since, as we learned before, Idea Factory International had to actually cancel their planned ports of the Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth trilogy onto Switch, since Nintendo told them that the games don't meet their new content guidelines, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. So those games did end up getting canceled entirely. However, now we have learned that East Asia Soft has actually picked up the first game of the trilogy, Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, and is going to do an Asian English release of this game on the Nintendo Switch. So, at least a third of the trilogy actually is going to get released on Nintendo's platform. Now, this is not a US release, it's an Asian English one. So it is getting a physical release through PlayAsia for both a standard and limited edition. I'll throw up a screenshot of it. So it will be available physically through that method or digitally on the Asian Nintendo eShop, but it is not going to be on the US eShop still, and it is not going to be published over here by IFI. So whatever those content guidelines were, they do still stand apparently. Since those ports do remain canceled. However, they were at least able to get it through the approval board on the Asian English side. So, we still don't really have any specific details about whatever these new guidelines or rules are. Of course, like always, it's very vague and nondescript. We do know it isn't solely affecting American releases, since Tokyo Clanpool got censored even on their Asian release. But apparently the Asian side didn't have any issues with this game. So apparently it's affecting multiple regions, but some regions more than others. Now, as far as we know, this game is going to be completely uncensored. We do have confirmation in a reply to someone on X from Joshua Michael French, one of the lead guys at East Asia Soft. He did confirm that they are not planning on censoring this game in any way. Now, East Asia Soft also didn't plan on censoring Tokyo Clanpool, and we all know how that turned out. But it doesn't appear like that's going to be the situation here again, which, of course, this game doesn't even have anything as risque as Tokyo Clanpool did, since this game originally had a teen rating on the original release on Vita and the PC ports. So it's possible that whatever issue Nintendo had with any of this never was directly involved with this part of the trilogy. Perhaps it was one of the other two games that had some sort of content that they had a problem with. Which, I know the original release of the second game was M-rated. That was the only main series game, at least, that was M-rated. All the rest of them were teen. Which, when they remade it into Rebirth 2, it got downgraded to a teen rating as well. So, possibly it was some content in the second game that was the cause of all this. Again, we don't really know anything for sure. But it looks like the first game is going to make it intact onto Switch, in some fashion, in English at least. So that is good news. Now, as far as the second and third Rebirth games, we still have no info one way or the other on those. Hopefully, East Asia Soft can eventually maybe get those published on there too. Again, dealing with these mystery guidelines might become a problem for one or both of those games. But we'll just have to wait and see on all that. One other thing I should mention here on the other side, with IFI, they still have no plans apparently to release any of these on the US eShop. However, they did announce that they are releasing the PlayStation 4 ports of all three of the Rebirth games over here, which those came out in Japan already and just never got released over here. So they did decide to release them on those platforms instead, since Nintendo put the kibosh on their original plans. So if you don't have the Rebirth games and you do want to pick them up in some fashion, that is going to be another option besides getting it on Vita or PC. So that is a pretty cool thing. Now, as far as me personally, I actually own all three of the original Vita releases of the Rebirth games. I actually just managed to pick up the first two physically not too long ago for, I wouldn't say good prices, but the best I could find them for. So I already own all three games on Vita. I also have the PS5 remake of Rebirth 1, the Neptunia Reverse game. So I currently don't really have any plans to pick up this physical Switch release of Rebirth 1, even though I am a little bit tempted by the limited edition solely for the art book, just because I love Sunako's art so much. But I'm going to try to control myself and not double dip on that game again on Switch. As for the PS4 ports, I'm still undecided on whether or not I'm going to bother with any of those. I think IFI does plan on doing physical releases of all three of those individually. I don't know if they're going to get any kind of limited edition or anything, or if they're just going to be standard editions. But I'm undecided on the PS4 side. I'm probably going to forego the Switch side entirely, though it is always good news when, niche games like this get ported to more platforms. So, overall, a good development in this story. I am glad that we were able to get at least one of these games released on Nintendo through some fashion, even if you might have to jump through a few hoops in order to get it if you live in the US. So, better than nothing, I suppose. As far as the rest of them, we will just have to wait and see how this pans out and see if we can ever get any more sort of specifics on whatever these new content guidelines or rules that Nintendo is implementing. But anyway, I guess that's all I got to say. So, lots of luck to you and yours.